Over the festive season, the Consumer Council of Fiji received a total of 16 complaints from dissatisfied customers regarding concerns over the internet services provided by major network providers in Fiji. The majority of these complaints surrounded the rate charged, failure to deliver service and misleading advertisements. Here to clarify these complaints are our guests for tonight, Consumer Council of Fiji CEO Pramila Kumar, Digicel Fiji CEO Mike Gregg and Vodafone Fiji Acting CEO Ronald Prasad. Good evening, I'm Geraldine Sen.
Good evening, and I'm Matthew.
Good evening and welcome to the show. Now, Ms. Kumar, given that 16 complaints were lodged in the festive season, a majority of them, of course, highlighted some of the concerns by these dissatisfied customers. Could you please give us an insight into exactly which ones were the major causes of concern for customers?
The data that we had put out was purely for the festive season, and the idea of that press release was more to focus on how people were spending their money. And generally we had put out a statement saying that we had received $1 million worth of complaints during the festive season, and there were obviously some dissatisfied consumers out there. So if you look at the complaints itself, we had broken it down into a number of complaints only for internet. It wasn't to do with the phone or text or anything of that nature. It was just purely internet. So looking at the complaints were pretty general. For example, the internet connections were not there in certain areas, although the product is advertised at 4G, but they're not getting that speed. And sometimes people have bought the product, and the geographical location in terms of exactly where 4G works or does not work is not given. So they buy the product, when they go and try it out, it's not working. So there is a high level of frustration there. And the other bit is, it's a general topic that often consumers discuss, and even it was discussed during this period, is why there is a data cap for peak and off-peak period. When I pay for that money, I pay for that data. It's up to me as to how I want to use it. And when you analyze that further, that particular complaint, it's a clear indication that there is no standard on that. So one company can have a non-peak period of 9 hours, the other one will have 7 hours. And then of course there's a third company that will have almost 12 hours. So how are people using that data? I mean, they feel frustrated that here I am paying for it, and particularly if I'm not home during that time, I'm at work, and when I go home and I want to access internet, and if I use it up just because it's classified as non-peak period, then I have to pay another set of money just to top up the non-peak period. So these were some complaints of that nature. But having said all that, I would like to give credit to the ISPs as well, compared to where we have come so far. I know I have been very vocal about internet and mobile phones for a very long time. And this is being done simply because when you look at ICT, the way ICT sector is operating is very similar to the banking sector, where the products keeps changing, the prices keep changing, and there is technical information that one needs to understand. And not everyone is ICT savvy, or they have that level of literacy to understand the product. So based on that, the Council has been advocating for certain changes, and we have seen that currently now there are a number of products which is very appealing to the consumers. For example, is the rollover data. Previously, you can't roll your data. There was an expiry dates and all that. Not that all ISPs are providing that, but at least Digicel is providing that. Rollover data with talk time. So these are the positive things, as well as roaming services. Even prepaid customers can access roaming services when they are abroad. So I say that from the time we started raising this concern, we can see some good things that has happened over a period of time, and there are other areas that needs to be improved.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Gregg, being that 16 complaints were lodged, 11 of them were against, not against rather, but about Digicel and Unwired. What's your say on that?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me on your program, and it's great to be here side by side with the Consumer Council. We take every complaint very seriously, obviously. We're only in business because our customers put us in business. And it's very important, as one of our core values at Digicel, is to firstly listen to our customers, understand their pain points, and then deal with those. So the first thing about 11, was it 11, 6? The number is terrible, I'll own that, and we don't want one unhappy customer. So without going through case by case and bringing excuses to the table, I'll just say this. It's critical to us that we fix any issues we have. We are working very, very hard on our ISP business. We're working very hard on bringing data to our customers and our consumers. And just to pick up on a couple of things, I think just recently in the last 2 or 3 months there's been some innovations in the market, and it's important to applaud the market in itself to start with. The reason that we are bringing Fiji technology at a far advanced level than we were, say, 6 to 7 years ago, in fact, when Digicel entered the market, the reason for that is competition. The reason for that is that we have organisations like Consumer Council who take care of our consumers and advocate for them. And that's a good thing. The world over, people have a very high demand for data, for internet, and as we all know, it's become part of our everyday life, to the point that we are extremely grumpy if we don't have our internet, right? And I'm a user as much as the manager of a company that provides. And so I think we are to be applauded that we are holding up a standard. I think we are to be applauded as an industry that we're bringing innovation and new products and value to consumers. And I think if you look at the period of the last 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, you'll see a tremendous evolution of services to consumers. Consumers, they don't care about that. They want the best deal of today. And so it's on me as a CEO of Digicel, and it's on my company and the people that work for my company to make sure we're constantly performing. So just to go back a step, we made some changes on our network over the Christmas period. That didn't help. What it did do, however, was bring more data to our customers. We talked about some innovations around rollover. We've taken a different approach where we've decided to give our customers value in data, and I think you'll see from our 7GB program that we launched on the 14th of December, we took data to a whole new level, almost to the point that people don't need to worry about running out of data, because I don't know if you've tried lately, but 7GB a week, it's pretty hard to consume actually. You've got to have a lot of time on the eyeball or streaming something to consume that. So what we decided to do was give back. That doesn't cover up or mitigate the need for us to perform better. We don't have 100% coverage. We want to work with Consumer Council, with our competitors on making sure that every Fijian has coverage. We want to work on making sure that every Fijian is educated. You know, we are now consuming 5, 6, 7 times more data than we did 2, 3 years ago. And with that, and with innovation and devices and evolution, comes the need for education. So we want to work with Consumer Council and other groups and advocates to make sure that customers are getting a fair deal, are getting the right deal, and understand how to use that and leverage that to their personal needs. There is no excuse for outages, and all I can say to that is we apologise, as we do to our customers. We hold a service level with our customers that we uphold, and as every telco in the world does, as my partner Vodafone does, we work vigorously to maintain that, and when we don't, we do everything we can to get a truck roll, to get people on the job to fix those problems. So all I can say is I acknowledge over that period there were issues. I know that we worked very hard to resolve them, but we're trying to go forward and bring value, and sometimes that means we have to change our network, we have to bring new products to market, and that can cause pain. But the ultimate overall result of that, I think, is positive for Fiji.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gregg. Mr. Prasad, we'll get your views on that after this. We'll be back after the break. You're watching For the Record. Welcome back. Now, Matthew, I believe you've got some questions?
It's just touching on what Pramila just said concerning rollover data. Is Vodafone planning to do anything like that in the future as well?
We already have rollover data. It is available on different types of plans. So as you can imagine, we have majority market share and we have different segments of customers that we serve. And accordingly, we have so many different types of plans, both on prepaid and postpaid. And obviously, on some of those, rollover data is available. Yeah, so I think that's taken care of.
Yeah.
And just picking up from what Mike said, it's quite important to understand that over the last 8-10 years, where the country has come in terms of where we were compared to where we are now. Now, if you look at Vodafone, today we have around 72% penetration of smartphone on our network. That means that a lot of Fijians, compared to 5-6 years ago, have now got access to internet. And the mobile phone is becoming the primary device through which they access internet. And all telcos, including Digicel, Telecom, Unwired, they are all putting in a lot of investment to continuously upgrade and improve the network and provide that customer experience to the customers. One thing that we all need to understand, we all users of internet, is that it has become almost an essential service for us now. We can be forgiving if we don't have access to power or if there's water cuts, but if you don't have access to internet, then it becomes a huge problem. Now that puts a lot of pressure on the telecommunication service providers to ensure that they continuously have the networks up and running.
I think there is a reason for that, as to why internet has become essential. It's not that consumers just want to go and watch a movie or things of that nature. It's simply because the government services are moving on internet. And not like before, where you go in person and apply for your visa. These days you have to download the forms, fill it up and lodge. So all in all, internet is definitely essential.
Absolutely.
And it is now part and parcel of a household budget. In other words, just like you look at your household money, and then you decide this much will go towards your FEA, this will go to WEF for your water bill, then you look at recharge card, your internet. So that has become essential even in the household budget. So from the consumer perspective, when a product becomes essential, they demand better services. Simple. And they want value for money. So if I pay this much money, I must get value for it. And I think the frustration happens when the internet speed lowers or there is an outage. Like for example, Lambasa is one place where they face a lot of problems. Of course, there are many other places. But I have personally experienced problems in Lambasa when it comes to internet. And when you want to communicate in Viti level, you just can't do it. Because the internet is out, very slow, wait for hours. So, and yet they pay the full bill. Full amount, but they're not getting that service. And that is causing this frustration. I mean, you may argue that, okay, it's only 16 complaints, what's so big deal about it? But do remember, the 16 complaints are systemic in nature, which means there are many consumers who are affected. So one can argue on that basis. And when we put out a number, we don't go looking at, say for example, we have received petition. And this is the petition we had received. And you can see so many people have signed up and they've lodged their complaint. For us, that's just one complaint lodged. But if you go into details, there were like 200 people who have lodged a complaint.
Just touching on complaints, one thing that is apparent is the amount of complaints that come on social media. Now, I know these aren't formal complaints made by consumers, of course, but why do you think they're not following your complaint procedures or trying to access them?
No, I think they are. If you look at the statistics that Consumer Council have put out, for every one complaint that consumer has made to Consumer Council, there can be 10, 15, 100 complaints in the back. And we have got mechanisms in place, all different touch points, retail, contact center, customer care. I'm not going to go into the details of the numbers, but yes, there are people that come in and complain. And the complaints are made up of not only complaints about, that we can't have access to internet or there are slow speeds. It's also made up of a lot of inquiries, getting information about a plan, where to buy, how to top up, where to recharge, so on and so forth. Now, some of the items that Premila has alluded to, for example, in Lambasa. Now, if you look at Lambasa, there are many factors that impact the performance of internet, and not only in Lambasa, any place for that matter. Now, if you are, for example, closer to a base station in a very good coverage, obviously the performance, the customer experience that you will get is going to be far better if you move out 5 or 10 kilometers away from there. So again, it all depends on what type of handsets you are using, what type of servers are you downloading from, where are you, what time of the day, what type of load is there on the base station. I think there's a bit of education that also needs to go in. We all need to understand that the technology that we roll out in the market is more or less a shared broadband technology. So you can never be guaranteed of a particular service level. And because you have different technologies that are implemented to provide better customer experience, 3G to 4G to 4G plus, and then later on going into 5G, the throughput will only increase. But this means that we also need to overcome the challenges of moving between different networks. Sometimes you may have a 4G plus enabled device, but you're not necessarily in 4G coverage. And if the settings are not correctly done on the devices, the customer will just absolutely have no coverage whatsoever on 4G. And if you're in a 3G coverage, sometimes you're on a 3G network mode and you go into a 4G coverage, but because it's locked onto 3G, while you are in 4G coverage, you may not necessarily get that burst of speed. So we continuously run consumer education programs to inform customers what to do and how to do. And you know, hopefully that these things are going to be picked up, and we will continue to do that.
And if I could just say that, I think I agree 100%. I think that's critical. We talked about customer education. We talked about the ongoing evolution of technology. Just to address Lambasa, you know, there are places outside of our coverage where people suffer, and nobody wants that. Everybody deserves the right to technology. Some things that I think are really encouraging for Fiji. One is that we're talking. We are now talking as operators with the government about the ability to bring technology to all of Fiji. Sharing towers is one idea that we have, where we get off our silos and we talk about, okay, what's really important for the community. And with Lambasa, I can tell you that there's already plans both operators have to augment capacity there. There's a new cable, undersea cable system plugging into Savu Savu. There's fibre being put in the ground. It's really exciting. And within the next 2 months, you're going to see that the upgrade of towers and the upgrade of services available to customers is going to be there. And so we have the plans in place. Does that make it right that somebody in Lambasa doesn't get the same quality of service? No, it doesn't. But we're a business. We have to invest money where we can. We have to report a profit to our boards. Yeah. Just to go back a step on Facebook, I think that's positive for Fiji. I'm amazed, having been here only 3 months now, how much Fiji society uses Facebook. I think that's an indicator of how far technology and the operators, it's a credit to the operators here, that people, 48% of Fijians get their information from Facebook. For us, it's absolutely critical. I watch Facebook every night. I look at Facebook, I see the complaints. I take it very personally. And because of what I'm seeing on Facebook, I've made a decision to bring my customer care centre into my corporate headquarters and have relocated it. It's right outside my door. That's how seriously I'm taking customer care. And the reason for that is I see it on social media. That's where people are saying exactly what's on their mind. And believe me, they don't mince words. It's very, very clear on social media what people think. So there is no better medium for getting up-to-date, in-your-face comment and critique on the services we're providing. Are we there yet? No, we're not. We need to improve. We need to listen. And Facebook is one area where you can get that right at the market every day, dynamic. So I think it's both a thumbs up to all of us here that have pushed technology, that social is now such a big factor for information sharing. It's a thumbs up to say that that is in Fiji. It's not coming, it's here now. Yeah. And it's also a prod to say, get it right. You know, if you want to be an internet provider, then get it right. And that's why we're working on a fair deal, speeds and feeds, and coverage. You know, we're getting there. We have plans that are in place. We're putting people on towers today to bring 4G plus to areas like Lambasa. So we're not waiting, sitting back on the couch. We're moving forward.
Thank you very much for that. We'll be back with more after the break. Welcome back. Now, Ms. Kumar, I believe you have something to add on to Mr. Gregg's comments.
Yes, definitely. I'm very pleased to hear Mr. Gregg say that he's going to improve on the customer aspect of things, because that's where my concern is. The main concern is when customers call in and everything goes on automated message and people wait for long to get a response. And I think this is the frustration point, where they're not able to speak to someone to get the issue resolved quickly. And as you know, when it comes to internet, even if they're out for 5 minutes, it's frustrating. They become very edgy. It's like, why I'm not getting the connection? So if you have to wait on the phone and nobody picks up the phone, it goes on the automated message, then you get a text message, and then you have to reply. So that's taking a lot of time. And that needs to be improved, and I'm glad that he mentioned it, so which means those listeners who have been lodging a complaint with us can hear it firsthand, his commitment to improve the customer care.
On that note, with the lodging complaints, of course, getting automated responses and everything, do you think that it's still sustainable to have charge services for customers who wish to lodge complaints? Because they may have issues that they'd like to raise, but then they have to think about the funds that are available in their phones to stay on the phone, hang on the phone, and then lodge the complaint. By the time they get to speak to an actual operator, the money is finished and they're not able to get to the point.
No, but there are not only charge lines. There are free service lines. So for example, for Vodafone, for prepaids 1 to 4, for postpaids 1 to 5. The 1 to 3 line obviously is a information hotline which is charged. But if they're to lodge complaints, they can definitely dial 1 to 4, 1 to 5. But more and more, what we are seeing is people are lodging their complaints through social media. So a lot of complaints coming through webmail, through chats, through Facebook. And we have a mechanism in place where we collect all this information from different touch points, and we have a trouble ticketing system, so a tracker system where it goes into the system, and every single complaint is taken very seriously. You can normally group them together. So for example, there may be complaints coming from one particular area which may be indicative of some issues in that area, and then engineers are deployed to that area to go and check. What we've found recently, and you would have also seen it in the news, is that quite a lot of places we are facing issues with regard to interference. So there are customers who are bringing in equipment that is now interfering with license frequencies that have been allocated to telecommunications operators. Now, we have done a couple of media conferences along with TEF, and we're trying to create more awareness and education in regards to that. But in terms of addressing customer complaints, that mechanism seems to be working quite well. Obviously, there may be some complaints that go beyond the normal timelines, which is to do with, for instance, providing additional capacity in that area or providing additional coverage. What's happening today is that where you had in an area 5 or 6 base stations that could, adequately cater for the demand, but because there is so much increase in internet penetration and consumption of data, those 5 base stations are no longer enough. And there's going to be continuous investment that we will pour in. Last year alone, Vodafone put in about 70 new sites within the Suvarnosori and Nandi Lotoka corridor to just provide additional capacity and coverage. Next year, we're putting in another $40 million to do that. And as Mike mentioned, that cable system that is coming and terminating in Savu Savu, there's already been RFPs called to take that connection from Savu Savu all the way to Lambasa. And that's really, really exciting, because what this means is now we don't have to rely on microwave backhaul transmission, and customers will be able to get much faster speeds. We already have 4G coverage in Lambasa, but now this means that we can extend the capacity, not only in Lambasa, but other places like Reki Reki, Tavua, and some of the islands. Islands will still obviously need to work on microwave, but those are some of the things that we are doing in the back end. And we're also investing in other smarts within the network. So for instance, caching technologies, which means that if a person has downloaded a particular content, the second person who downloads the content is able to access or get that content much faster, because it's not serving it from all the way from US or Sydney, but it's serving it from our caching servers in Fiji. We have also now entered into a program where we now share local traffic. We exchange local traffic. It's called the IXP. So this means that any traffic that originates from Fiji and is outbound to Fiji does not need to go outside of Fiji and create that latency through that round trip. So all of those things, all the smarts that we are doing is definitely going to add towards improving that customer experience.
I have to commend you for the measures that you're putting in place. But you also spoke about interferences and your work with TEF. You're talking about the decked phones, right?
So decked phone is just one example. If you look at Fiji, we follow the European standards, and normally people that come out of America, South America, North America, if they buy some wireless equipment from there and they bring it and they operate it in Fiji, if it's operating on one of the licensed frequencies that the telecommunications operator uses, then it will cause interference. So we have been able to confiscate a lot of decked phones, some IP cameras, some Wi-Fi routers and antennas that were actually operating on the same frequency as we operate our 3G network, and in some cases in 4G. So a typical example of that would be that you're in a great coverage area where you have 3 or 4 bars on your phone. However, the browsing is taking a lot of time. The phone heats up. It's chewing up a lot of battery. That's typical indications that there must be some external interference that's causing noise in the system. So yeah, we have been grateful for the work that TEF has put in. There's a lot of education. I think from this weekend onwards, a lot more content is going to go out into the media to educate customers, because at the end of the day, it's the customers who are being impacted through this.
Because they have deemed these devices as illegal.
Illegal, absolutely. Yeah. So I think there is a need to improve border protection, border control, what we can do at the border level to be able to stop the devices coming into the country, because that seems to be the place where the devices are coming in. And we are already working closely with the customs department to address some of those issues.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Kumar. Sorry, Mr. Prasad, my mistake. We'll be back with more after the break. Welcome back. Now, Mr. Greg, I believe you'd like to address the issue of customers calling up and being addressed by automated machines. And that's a very, very irritating thing for most of them.
It is. And I will address that. I remember when I moved to the United States in 2003, having to use IVR, and because of my New Zealand accent, I couldn't get through the IVR, and it was very frustrating, and it is. But I want to go back a step and talk about what's important for us. We are absolutely committed to transformation, and that means putting our customers first. I mentioned that we've recently moved our call centre into our head office, and it resides some 6 feet away from the CEO's office. So that's how passionate and concerned I am about making sure we do it right. We have introduced, because Fiji is becoming a digital landscape, we've introduced digital tools. And my colleague talked about Facebook. It's huge. People want to interact now using chat. People want to interact using Facebook. People actually want to engage digitally. So we need to accommodate that. So for some people, actually making the old phone call is quite foreign. They're more used to using digital media. So we need to adapt. The medium age for Fijians is 27. We need to be conscious of that. So we do have a growing portion of our customer base that want to use digital tools. We've introduced IVR. We're testing it. It's brand new, and as with any brand new vehicle, it's going to take time to bed in. And we are seeing positive results. We are also seeing some complaints, and I apologise to customers who've not been able to get through to us. We're improving that, and we expect it to be a very, very smooth process going forward. We've introduced Zendesk, which is a way to educate customers. So we are absolutely committed to bringing people along for the ride and making sure that we improve our customer experience statistics. We take it very seriously. There was one other point I wanted to make about value. And we talked about how important it is for people now. The internet's part of their weekly spend, just like power, food, and clothes. So we recognise that, and we listened to Fijians. We recently launched a program called Digicel On, Worries Off, and that was about stopping out-of-bundle pricing charges. We think it's quite revolutionary. We certainly didn't do it for profit. We did it because we felt like we needed to be more transparent about what customers were doing and what we were doing with their data. And so now, instead of using your available credit when you go out of bundle, without telling you and having that bill shock or that shocking experience of, oh, I've lost all my credit, what we do is we tell you, and we don't charge you out of bundle rates. Now, for me as a business owner, that was a revenue hit. I lost money over that. But for my customers, that's a real positive. And I think that is an indicator, money where my mouth is an indicator that Digicel is serious about our customer experience. And so we launched that in January. And we've had a very positive response to that. And also, as you know, we launched 7GB. which was 7 times more data than anybody had ever had before. Quite a radical move. By world standards, Fijians now have data at incredibly efficient prices. And I congratulate my colleague as well. As an industry, that's where we are. We're giving Fijians what they need, which is the internet, at accessible and available prices. So I think that the indicators are there that whilst we're in a digital world, we're moving to a digital world, we're also recognising that that should be valued. And so things like out of bundle off, that's a real indicator that we're serious about not stealing from our customers, but enhancing that experience. I wanted to mention that because for every complaint we get, actually we get a lot of compliments as well for what we're doing.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Any plans in place for Vodafone to follow suit?
So we have a lot of value in very different types of deals. So for example, if you look at one of our plans where we offer free unlimited social applications, that is very well received by the customers. As Mike mentioned, the average age in Fiji of the population is 27 years old. A lot of these people, they have been brought up in an age where they don't talk on the phone. All they do is they do messaging, instant messaging, social applications and all of those kind of things. So different types of propositions and plans will come in. We've got the 7 GB for $7 for 7 GB. We've got the 10 GB for $7. We've got unlimited social apps. We've seen as a result of what happens in the markets, a lot of value added onto daily plans, plus plans, weekly plans. So there's quite a lot of different types of plans and propositions to suit every segment of the market. And what we see is that the average rate of data consumption just keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. Now we also need to be mindful that being and operating in a telecommunications industry is very, very capital intensive. It's unlike other industries where you invest in one sort of capex and that will then reap you benefits over the next 10, 15 years. With this, you need to keep upgrading your towers, you need to build more capacity, you need to upgrade the backends, and I'm sure my colleague would agree with me that there's a lot of time, effort and money being spent on this. So we have already trialed, for example, pre-5G in September last year. Now we are already ready for most of our base stations from a backhaul perspective. And as soon as these standards are finalized, Fiji will become one of the first countries in the South Pacific to roll out 5G, for instance. And 5G gives you almost 10 times the speed that someone would experience on 4G. And once that comes in, people also need to realize that, let me use an example, for instance. So previously, a lot of people were watching movie and streaming in HD. HD works on 720p. So it would, for example, a movie would take maybe 600 MB worth of data to watch that movie. Now the televisions have been upgraded to 4K. You can see that the pixels have been upgraded. The picture quality is 4, 5, 6 times better than just standard HD. But when you watch a movie or stream a movie in 4K now, it will obviously take 4 or 5 times the bandwidth that you would see in a standard definition. So your quality is improving. And of course, when you move from a 2G to the 3G to a 4G technology, what you could stream in, say, 10 minutes will take you a minute now. So obviously, there are some customers who are complaining, hey, my data is being utilized so quickly. But what they fail to realize is that we are bringing in enhancement and improvement in technology that saves them time and money and gives them a better quality. So I think when we look at it from a whole perspective, then we're able to appreciate the challenges that the service providers are under. And with Vodafone, 96% 3G coverage and almost up to 80% with 4G, 4G plus coverage. So a lot of places where people didn't have access to internet have access to internet. You compare that to the more developed countries like Australia and New Zealand, where all the heavy lifting in terms of downloads are done through fixed wire. But in a country like Fiji, where the terrain is very challenging, the wireless operators, they have become the primary internet provider or ISP provider for the entire nation. So it's quite powerful and exciting and encouraging to see, for instance, someone in Essaouas is able to go fishing and through the use of technology is able to sell his produce into Suva for a much higher rate. So we've got hundreds of stories where we see mobile phone, internet, the internet penetration that has transformed the lives of our customers. So yes, reality is, I agree with Mike, we will always have complaints, but we're very, very committed to listen to our customers and keep putting in what we do to improve the service.
Thank you for that, Mr.
Did we go over
Prasad. Now,
time?
Ms. Kumar, I believe you have some thoughts on that, but we'll get back to that after the break. Welcome back. Now, Ms. Kumar, I believe you do have a couple of words you'd like to add on to the comments that were made by Mr. Gregg and, of course, Mr. Prasad earlier on.
Yes, both gentlemen have spoken about the young people using internet, and I think this is the right forum for me to speak about the needs of young people. And one of the issues young people, and that's where I received a petition from young people, and this is as early as late last year, where they were very upset and they raised their concern on the speed of internet, purely because some of them are gamers. They play professional games, which is a multi-million-dollar industry. And they said, why we're not getting that kind of speed, because if there is a drop, that means they lose out. And I hope these young people are listening to me, because I'm putting the issue on the table. And at the same time, I want all other listeners to keep in mind that at the end of the day, complaints matter. Because sometimes consumers, they don't come forward and lodge a complaint because they think the neighbor has raised it, that's good enough. That's not good enough. Maybe I'm not able to solve the complaint, but we would like to hear from you, because that's where we feed these complaints into policy formulation. If there is a need for a policy, we put that in, and then we lobby for a policy change. For example, the council has been lobbying for a policy change in the telecom sector, which is at least having a consumer code of practice, right? And that is still not in place. So that's how we feed in the complaints. You may not get individual redress because it's a systemic issue, and systemic issues require policy formulation, then we work in that direction. So I hope consumers understand that and they can lodge their complaints, and the best way to do that is just calling National Consumer Helpline, which is 155.
Thank you for that. For our final comments, Mr. Gregg and Mr. Prasad, would you like to give your thoughts?
Sure. Thank you for having us today. I acknowledge the need for consumer advocacy. It's absolutely important. Please keep complaining so that we get it right. I will just address the speed. We have upgraded our network to 4G+. You'll notice now in the Nasori Talami area in Suva, we're now operating a fully 4G+ network, and I have on my device speed tests up to 100 megabits per second. So our network right now is flying. Any gamer out there, come and see me. I'd love to see and hear your response to our new speeds and feeds. Look, Digicel since 2007 has come into Fiji and put money in the market in innovation and bringing the very best services to consumers, whether that's mobile, television, premium television, or internet. And we continue to be absolutely committed to the customer and the customer experience. We do have best practices. We do have guidelines around how we want to perform. And we, every day, get up out of bed and try to do that. I must say that I've never worked with a better team. The team at Digicel are committed, they're hardworking, and I know that everybody at Digicel Fiji wants to improve. We want to bring the very best services to our customers, and we want Fiji to be on the map as a truly digital society where people can use technology for everything, social, learning, communicating. And so we have put our money where our mouth is. We've upgraded our network. We continue to bring products to market that we think are great deals for Fijian consumers, like Worries Off, Digicel On, no more out-of-bundle charging, like 7 GB data, which is exactly for that young consumer. 7 gigabytes a week is a lot of data compared to what you could get 2 years ago for twice the price. So we apologise for outages. We're working hard on fixing those, and you have my absolute commitment to improve.
Thank you for that. Mr. Prasad, your thoughts?
Yes, again, thank you very much for having me here. It's very important to have a very vocal consumer watchdog, and we appreciate and acknowledge the role that Consumer Council plays in the whole mix of things. It's quite important because it keeps the operators on their toes, and they are the voice of the consumer. And in addition to that, we also have different mechanisms in place for our consumers and our customers to come in and complain. Now, if you look at Vodafone, we have won so many international awards the Business Excellence Awards in Fiji, and you don't go ahead and win these type of awards without having proper procedures and policies in place. So we take our entire 360 view degree of our customers, and we put our customers at the center of everything that we do. Now, knowing the fact that Vodafone has majority market share in the market, yes, obviously in terms of complaints you would expect that Vodafone numbers are going to be higher than anyone else in the market. But if you look at the customer satisfaction, to a large extent customers are happy. The gaming issue, yes, as we move from 4G to 4G plus to 5G, the issue that gamers normally face is through latency, which is a little bit slow speeds and signaling. Now those are going to be only improved over the next couple of months. We have a lot of gamers on our network, but it's not the same type of experience at all sites. Now most of the gamers would play games from their homes, and in many cases the service levels at homes will not differ too much. But if you're on the go, then obviously migrating or moving from 4G to 3G areas or from the west to the north or some other place could impact customer experience. But overall, if you look at speeds, Greg has mentioned 100 Mbps. We've had those type of speeds for almost 9-10 months now. Our network is now today capable of downloading theoretical speeds of 225 megabits per second, and I have seen speed tests that show 180 megabits on the phones. That is phenomenal, because that gives rise to a lot of cloud applications. And Premila spoke about the fact that more and more government services are now going to come online. And this is what is going to take our country forward. The government obviously is very, very committed to increasing the internet penetration, and they have built and assisted through a lot of telecenters. And Vodafone is also very, very committed to increase internet penetration and providing that type of service and experience to customers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all very much for coming on to the show. We wish you all the best in all your endeavors in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any queries regarding any of the concerns raised tonight, you can contact the respective network providers by calling their customer care helpline. For Digicel, call 700-3123, and for Vodafone, call either 124 or 125. If you'd like to lodge an official complaint with the Consumer Council of Fiji, you can do so by filling out the complaints form available on their website, www.consumersfiji.org, or call their helpline 155. That wraps up our show for tonight. On behalf of the team, Matthew and myself, we hope you enjoyed the show. Good evening.